Each year in the family service before the mourner's Kaddish of Kol Nidre, we share a World Yizkor list and remember those whose lives impacted ours in ways we know, but whose names we often do not. It goes without saying that this is an incomplete list and tries to balance a small selection of innovators and impact makers in a wide variety of fields and their areas of often astounding expertise. Each leaves behind grieving families, and we pray that they have found comfort following loss. So with respect and honor, here is our list for those who passed away in the year 5780. Computers and tech. William English, an engineer and researcher who helped build the first computer mouse. In 1968, he demonstrated a prototype of this gadget that would make computing accessible to the masses, quickly proving that it could navigate a screen faster than any other device. Lawrence Tesler, who made personal computing easier. When you're cutting and pasting, dragging the cursor over selected text, and performing other common computer tasks, you can thank him if you are so inclined. George Laurer, who developed the barcode. Every purchase evokes his design of the rectangular universal product code, but although it became ubiquitous, he received no royalties for it. Gary Starkweather, inventor of the laser printer. He originally received pushback from his employer, Xerox, but his invention was eventually to be found in almost every office and in many homes. Movie actors. Wilford Brimley, Cocoon star and Quaker Oats pitchman. Kelly Preston, Jerry Maguire star and wife of John Travolta. She was 57. Kirk Douglas, a star of Hollywood's golden age. His rugged good looks and muscular intensity made him a commanding presence in films like Lust for Life, Spartacus, and Paths of Glory. In later years, he also engaged in regular Torah study with his rabbi, David Wolpe. He was 103. Chadwick Boseman, star of Black Panther as King T'Challa, of 42 as Jackie Robinson, and as Marshall in Thurgood Marshall, and as Thurgood Marshall in Marshall. He was 45 years old, and he had suffered in silence with advanced colon cancer, even while filming these spectacular movies. TV personalities. Regis Philbin, TV's enduring everyman. Hugh Downs, perennial TV fixture, host of Today and 2020. For many years, he held the record for most total hours on commercial network TV. Carl Reiner, the comedian who let others get the laughs. Jerry Stiller. In the 1960s, he and his wife, Ann Mira, found success as a comedy team. In the 1990s, he found it again as Frank Costanza on Seinfeld. Carol Spinney, Big Bird's alter ego on Sesame Street. Besides the sweet-natured giant yellow bird, he also played the misanthropic bellyacre, Oscar the Grouch. Fred Willard, a TV presence for decades, was on camera recently as Phil Dunphy's father in Modern Family and had a cameo in Space Force, having starred in the original version. Entertainment, behind the scenes. Rick Ludwin, NBC executive who championed Seinfeld. He was also a veteran of the late-night wars and presided over the difficult changeover of Tonight Show hosts from Johnny Carson to Jay Leno. Gene Reynolds, an architect of MASH. He also helped bring another acclaimed series, Lou Grant, to television. Thomas Miller, hit-making TV producer. Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, and Full House were among his shows, and he also found the right guy to play the Fonz. Sports. Margaret Maughan, medal-winning wheelchair athlete. Paralyzed from the waist down, she won gold in archery and swimming at the first Paralympic Games in 1960 and became an advocate of sports as therapy. Don Shula, who had more victories than any other coach in the league and the only perfect season in its history as head coach of the 1972 Miami Dolphins, all while helping to shape pro football's modern era. Al Kaline, Tigers' perennial all-around all-star. One of baseball's finest hitters, he was also one of its best defensive outfielders, playing 22 seasons in Detroit. He was nicknamed by none other than the hard-to-please Billy Martin as Mr. Perfection. Mickey Wright, one of the greatest players in women's golf, she won 82 LPGA tournaments, 13 of them majors, dominating the tour in the late 1950s and for much of the 1960s. David Stern, transformative NBA commissioner, his marketing vision turned the world's premier professional basketball league into a global brand with its biggest stars as its ambassadors. Tom Seaver, pitcher who led the Miracle Mets to glory, known as Tom Terrific and the franchise, and this rabbi's favorite player of all time, he won 311 games in his Hall of Fame career. Don Larson, the Yankee who pitched the only perfect game in World Series history. He retired after 14 seasons with a losing record for his career, but for one day in 1956, he was the picture of perfection. Kobe Bryant, the incomparable, competitive, and self-confident basketball record setter and Los Angeles Laker phenom, was 41. His 13-year-old daughter, a budding basketball star herself, was also killed in that tragic helicopter crash. American civil rights heroes, John Lewis, civil rights leader and the conscience of the Congress. C.T. Vivian, who was MLK's field general. The Reverend Joseph E. Lowery, who helped found the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and gave the benediction at President Barack Obama's inauguration. Victims of police violence who sparked a worldwide movement, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor. We will continue to say their names. Activists, Stacey Milburn, a warrior for disability justice who was 33 years old. Through her organizing, writing, and speaking, Ms. Milburn was a prominent and widely respected figure in what is known as the disability justice movement in the San Francisco Bay Area and beyond. Larry Kramer, playwright and outspoken AIDS activist. He sought to shock the country into dealing with AIDS as a public health emergency and foresaw that it could kill millions regardless of sexual orientation. Annie Glenn, champion of those with speech disorders. Being an astronaut's wife thrust her into the spotlight, but a stutter left her struggling for words until she found help. She was 100 years old. Dennis Goldberg, South African freedom fighter. He was the only white defendant to be convicted alongside Nelson Mandela and others in 1964 for resisting apartheid. He spent 22 years in prison. More inventors and innovators. John J. Mooney, an inventor of the catalytic converter, has prevented billions of tons of emissions from cars, trucks, and lawnmowers. Herb Goldsmith, the man behind the members-only jacket. An aggressive marketer, he used celebrities to promote his brand. Frank Sinatra, Johnny Carson, 2 presidents, and at least one B'nai Torah rabbi wore his jackets. Fred Cox, Vikings kicker and an inventor of the Nerf football. He was a mainstay of a Vikings team that lost 4 Super Bowls and, while playing, helped create a squeezable foam toy that brought him decades of royalties. Authors, Roger Kahn, who lifted sports writing with Boys of Summer, his 1972 book about his beloved Brooklyn Dodgers, acknowledged as a classic, was, like many of his 20 or so other books, steeped in memories of his boyhood. Mary Higgins Clark, best-selling queen of suspense, she became a world-renowned author writing about nice people whose lives are invaded. Firsts, Emily Howell Warner, first woman to command a cockpit for a major American airline, and the first woman to achieve the airline rank of captain. June Bacon Bursey, path-breaking meteorologist. She is widely believed to have been the first African-American female meteorologist to forecast weather on television. Barbara Hillary, trailblazer on top and bottom of the world. A retired nurse, she was the first black woman to reach both poles, doing so in her 70s after deciding that she wanted a little adventure in her life. Alexei Leonov, the first person to walk in space. The Russian cosmonaut's thrilling feat in 1965 nearly cost him his life, but raised Soviet prestige during the Cold War space race against the United States. Diane Carroll. In 1962, Carroll won a Tony Award for Best Actress, a first for an African-American woman, for her role in the Broadway musical No Strings. In 1974, she starred in Claudine alongside James Earl Jones, for which she received an Academy Award for Best Actress nomination. Her 1968 debut in Julia, the first series on American television to star a black woman in a non-stereotypical role. Jewish and Israeli, Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz created epic translation of the Talmud. A rabbi and scholar, he wrote more than 60 books, but his crowning achievement, he called it his hobby, was his 45-year, 45-volume translation of this key Jewish text. Rabbi Norman Lamb, who rescued Yeshiva University and championed the idea that Orthodox Jews could maintain their faith while engaging with modern society. Greta Beer, who fought Swiss banks for family assets. Rebuffed by the banks, she pressed her fight, and her testimony in Congress helped bring about a $1 billion settlement over accounts of Holocaust victims that were long hidden. Rabbi Henry Sobel, who defied Brazil's military rulers. The leader of the largest liberal Jewish congregation in Latin America, he took a stand when a journalist was killed by his torturers in 1975. Medicine. Dr. Tomisaku Kawasaki pinpointed a heart inflammation which COVID-19 has brought back into the news. Dr. John Murray, pioneering lung expert, internationally recognized in pulmonology, he helped define acute respiratory distress syndrome, a condition that led to his death, attributed to the coronavirus. Dr. Seymour Schwartz, who wrote the book on surgery. His name is synonymous with his field. He was a founding editor of Schwartz's Principles of Surgery, a seminal textbook for medical students. Music, Kenny Rogers, who brought country music to a pop audience. One of the first country artists to sell out arenas, Mr. Rogers sold more than 100 million records in a career that spanned decades. Bill Withers, who sang Lean on Me and Ain't No Sunshine. A 3-time Grammy Award winner, he had a string of much-covered hits in the 1970s, but had not released an album since 1985. Ellis Marsalis, jazz pianist and music family patriarch, the father of Wynton and Branford Marsalis, and a prominent performer and educator, he succumbed to complications of the coronavirus. Business, Jack Welch, GE chief who became a business superstar. Mr. Welch was named Manager of the Century after General Electric's revenue jumped nearly 5-fold during his tenure. Joe Coulombe, who founded Trader Joe's, equal part gourmet shop, discount warehouse, and tiki trading post. His stores caught on in Southern California and eventually beyond. Cy Sperling, founder of Hair Club for Men and also a client. A star in the era of TV pitchmen, Mr. Sperling rose to fame with ubiquitous late-night ads in the 1980s and 90s. Joseph Siegel, founder of the QVC shopping network. The chief executive, QVC's parent company, said it changed the way the world shops. We cannot ignore those lost to COVID-19. While there is no way to do justice to over 200,000 deaths in the United States, here is a minion of coronavirus victims presented with honor, respect, and sadness. Rendata McGuire, home health aide who worked with adults with mental disabilities. She was 39. Samantha Diaz, Florida healthcare worker and mother of 3. She was 29. Adrian Gomez, who cared for migrant youth, was 52. Lenora Faye Garfinkel, the rare Orthodox Jewish architect who designed synagogues and social halls for religious communities, was 90. Stephen L. Kamholtz, chair of medicine at Maimonides Hospital in Brooklyn, which was swamped by the virus, he was 72. Dr. Barry Weber, a rock climber, tinkerer, and musician, he was a general surgeon who died of the novel coronavirus after volunteering to help COVID-19 patients. He was 67. Willie Levy was one of a group of men with disabilities who worked for substandard wages at a turkey plant, but found justice. He was 73. Samantha Hickey, a nurse who trained dozens of junior colleagues and exercised rare skills as a diagnostician over more than 20 years as a nurse in southwestern Idaho. She was 45. William Helmreich, sociologist and a walker in the city, a scholar of Judaism as well. He walked every block in New York, totaling 6,163 miles, and wrote a book about his odyssey. He was 74. Romy Cohn, who saved 56 Jewish families. Mr. Cohn was only 15 when he began rescuing Jewish families in Czechoslovakia in 1944 as part of the partisan resistance. After coming to the US, he became an accomplished Moel and real estate developer. He was 91. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg, legendary justice, icon of equality, and a quiet but fierce force on the highest court in the land for a quarter century. She was proud of her lifelong Jewish identity, writing in 1996, "The demand for justice runs through the entirety of the Jewish tradition. I hope in my years on the bench of the Supreme Court of the United States, I will have the strength and courage to remain constant in the service of that demand." She was a child of immigrants and, as the notorious RBG, an unlikely cultural phenomenon. She represented the pinnacle of accomplishment for women, Jewish Americans, and based on the glowing tributes of her colleagues left and right, of judicial competence and accomplishment of the highest order in this or any other generation. May the memory of all those recalled over this Yom Kippur be for a blessing. Shana Tova and Gemar Chatima Tova.